here, and let's see. I want to make sure I have everything set up. So, you may notice I'm in black and white today. That's just to help with being able to see these lines as we draw. So if you like this film noir look, very dramatic, like Citizen Kane, 5 bags of popcorn rating on that film. Well, the deal is, right now we're going to dive in first by creating what we call a horizon line. Now, yesterday we talked a little bit about what a horizon line is, but the most important thing is it's typically horizontal. There is a case where you might draw it not horizontal on your piece of paper, but for our purposes, we're going to stick with that as a general rule of thumb to keep this simple. Now we're going to start by placing in the center a small dot, which we call the vanishing point for reference. So today I'm hoping you guys can see this a little better. I'm using a Mars Lumograph black pencil. If you can see that. This is a really unique mix between like a pencil and almost like it's like a carbon black. It's darker than a regular pencil, and it shows up a little bit better on camera, but sometimes it's a little bit harder to erase. So if you guys notice that it's a little bit more harder, you can still see some of those lines. It's not all bad for when we're learning, but I just wanted to mention that. Now, you might be wondering what we're focusing on today, because yesterday we talked a lot about drawing simple forms, for example, like a square, and then we bring it to the vanishing point. So I placed 2 vertical lines. They're not the exact length that I want, they're not the same, but I can use a horizontal line. The way I find that is take my horizon line, slide it down without changing that angle, and I'm going to draw across. Got a little sloppy there, and create a rectangle. Now I want you to think about this on this side, but let's think about something like this. Doesn't even have to be a perfect circle, but a round object. They're about the same size, and we can tell that they're about at the same distance away from us. Okay? What I want you guys to think about is if we were to extend these into the distance, they would get more and more narrow. They'd kind of pinch together. So the way that we do that with the square is we look for things like the corners. We labeled them yesterday. I can do that again if you want. So let's call this one A, B, C, and D. And we're looking to connect each one of these corners, think of them as hotspots, to this vanishing point. Now the lines that connect corners to a vanishing point we call converging lines. Okay, so remember those 3 types of lines. We have horizontal, which is going to be right here. Horizontal means left to right, perfectly horizontal, right, with the horizon, where the sky meets the earth. Then we have a vertical line. That is something that goes straight up and down at a perfect 90-degree angle, or at a cross from there. Another way you could find that is the upper side of your paper if you compare it to that. So I created this rectangle or square with 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines, and I'm going to connect each corner or intersection with the vanishing point over here. So I start with my ruler kind of hovering around this vanishing point, and I'm going to connect these directly. So you can see this nice straight line to each point. And for the purposes of this one, I'm not going to connect it to D because that line goes behind this object. I'm just going to focus on getting A, B, and C connected. All right. Now let's think about what we have here. We have a box that's very long. It's going all the way so far away that it vanishes at the vanishing point. These lines tell us how big to draw the box as it goes farther away from us. And we'll see that when we take a slice out of it. So for example, if I wanted to make this a box that stops right about here, I can put a vertical line in between A and B. And then where it meets the converging line, I'm going to put a horizontal line straight across. That's going to create a 3-dimensional box. If you want to review some of those things and practice those skills, I'd suggest checking out yesterday's video. We're just talking about those basic forms. But for today, we're going to talk about this circle. Yesterday we talked about if we imagined like somebody firing arrows. Let's say the moon is out, and we mentioned if the arrows get fired directly from the vanishing point, and this archer isn't very good, so on his first shot, he shoots and he just skims it. He touches it on one point and it bounces off and keeps going. He tries again, does the same thing. It just skims the surface, only touches the circle of the moon right like this. These are what are called tangents, where a line meets a circle at one point. That's a really important thing because it only happens once. I should say there are only set areas where that could happen if you're connecting it to this point. And that is a key way that instead of looking for a corner, like we did over here with A, B, C, and D, with round objects, we're forced to look for tangent lines. Another way to look at it is, think about a slide, okay? Like say you're going down a slide, and here it starts up here, okay? Slide number 1 goes directly down like this in a straight line, and then it hits the earth. Okay, that's not going to be a very fun ride. It might be fun going down, but once you hit here, it's going to be a hard impact. Something that swoops down slowly at the bottom and then kind of just slowly merges with the horizontal is going to be a much more smooth ride as you get down. This is what we call a tangent, right? It's a kind of a smooth curve where that straight line meets a curve. But it doesn't go through it. It actually kind of merges with it or comes back up. So without further ado, we're going to start connecting, and we're going to turn this little circle into a cylinder. So what I'm going to start by doing is using my pivot point of the vanishing point. I'm going to slide this around that vanishing point and see where it touches just on the edge of that circle. I'm going to draw a converging line. Once again, that converging line is any line that goes to the vanishing point from an object. And we're going to turn this down and start to connect this tangent with the vanishing point. Now right now we have this really round, long thing over here, but we don't really know. The illusion works pretty well, but the thing is that since it goes so far over there, we don't really know if this is like a cone. So how do we cut this thing off? We can't put another square on the end of it, right? If we cut this rod, it's going to stay circle on this other end. So the trick is, you could use something like a compass if you want, and you could calculate the center and all those things, but I'd highly recommend getting the hang of really sketching these things in. But the trick is getting it to line up on the tangent. Now I want this to end at the same place, okay, that this one ends. So I'm going to use a horizontal line to measure across to see where that's going to be. So right here where it meets this line, I'm going to have to draw another circle that is tangent right here. Now the trick is getting a perfect circle, and the reason I recommend drawing a perfect circle very lightly, draw it a few times, try to sketch it in there, is because you want to make sure that it's an actual circle. And we're going to erase the other part after firming up this part of the sketch. So now I need to erase this inside portion, and hopefully you'll start to see that illusion taking place. So it looks a little bit more like a cylinder that could roll over here. There's another reason why we draw that circle, which we'll get into later. Okay, especially when you're trying to draw like a donut-shaped object where you can kind of see through the object. And there's also ways you could play with shading to make this thing look really nice. But what we have to figure out is, we got lucky with this one because the end of this pipe or cylinder is facing us directly. And we know that because this is a perfect circle. What happens if the pipe is laying side to side? that can be really tricky, because if you've ever looked at a circle, for example, something like this speaker here, okay, if I show it to you directly head on, we can see a circle. But if I turn it like this shape appears to be more of like an oval. If I put it right in front of the camera, you can hardly even see the ends of it. But if I slide it over, you can start to see this shape, but it's still more of an oval instead of a perfect circle. So what I'm going to try to do is start off by making a log or something that's like rolling, but it's going to be, we're going to make one over here and over here. And we're going to do a few different things with them. All right. Actually, let's put it up in the sky because we have a little bit more room. Okay. Now the trick here is we want this thing to be horizontal. So I'm going to start off with 2 horizontal lines. Okay. I'm going to put it a little bit off to the right of the vanishing point. Okay. Now what's difficult is we want to know exactly how to put this on the end. And I'm just going to sketch something in. If I just put a circle right here, right, that's not going to look right because it looks like there's 2 circles at the end. We have almost like a round object. So I'm actually going to show a way to make sure that we could make a round object using this square. Okay? So I'm going to treat this like a box instead of treating it like a cylinder at first. I'm going to shorten this up a little bit. Here we go. So I want you to start thinking about a cylinder, especially when it's kind of facing in this direction. Start it off by thinking of it as a rectangle. Okay? We're going to connect these lines to the vanishing point just to give us a point of reference, and we'll make it 3-dimensional. So I'm lining those things up, starting off by making those light because I'm going to erase most of it later. If you watch my video about making 3-dimensional letters, we talked about positive and negative space. It's always helpful to start with simple forms like rectangular blocks. They're way easier to measure and draw than round objects or things that are organic in shape. So the cool thing about this one is that you can start off with this and then carve it into a new shape, and that's what we're going to do. Okay, so I have this new rectilinear box, but I want to cut it off so it looks like kind of like a square. So I'm going to just sketch something in right here. Use my judgment. So that's going to be my horizontal line. And then I'm going to continue this over with a horizontal line. If this is moving too fast, I recommend you check out that that video from the other day. And so this little box can be a really helpful way to figure out what this circle is going to look like. I'm realizing this is a little small, so I'm going to do a second one over here. It's going to be nice and big, so bear with me for a second while I create a new one. Just going to start off with, picture like a billboard. So I'm connecting these 2 lines at the vanishing point. And I want to just use my judgment to say, okay, this is going to be a square on its side. I'm going to lighten up this line for the horizon in between so we can start to imagine this as a plane in space. But I want you to see it as like it's going down away from us. Okay, so I'll use this to demonstrate, and then we'll complete this tube up here. So this square, flat plane that we're going to be doing, we're going to need to make sure we find the center in order to do this correctly. So what I'm going to do is a trick I taught you last time, and that is to connect the 2 opposite corners with a light line. And what that X represents is the exact center of this shape, okay? The exact center of that shape is pretty unique in that it tells us a few different things. If you've been in geometry class, you can think about this. But if I draw a vertical line directly through that center, it does something really cool, is it splits these two lines in half. It tells me halfway the distance over here, right? So this line is equal to that line, which is hard to believe, right? But if we take the vanishing point and we go directly through the center again, what you're going to notice is since this is almost directly at eye level, or right in the middle, that line almost looks like the horizon. There's nothing wrong with that, and this can get a little bit tricky, but I want you guys to see that this line should go directly, this is actually splitting these two halves in the middle, and then over here it's the same thing. Why is that important? It's because it can help us guide how we shape the oval that we're creating that is going to show that this is a circle, but in perspective. So remember how I was showing you that slide before, how we wouldn't want to ride one that goes directly into the ground and we'd hit our butt on the ground really hard? Well, the issue here is we're going to be swooping in. That's the key thing, getting a nice smooth curve. It's not an exact science. I'm sure there's a way to actually mathematically do this with a computer, but as an artist, you're in charge of kind of judging how this is going to look. So it takes some practice, but I have 4 key targets that I'm focusing on getting that smooth tangent curve to, and those are right here. The midpoint here, and its opposite down there, the midpoint here, and its opposite right here. So here what we're going to do is make 4 arcs that smoothly start off like this and then just kind of blend into that line. Okay, I'm going to do one more down here. Should be pretty similar. Trying to almost like warp this in my mind so it smoothly follows that area. Okay, so I have the front part of this circle. The back part is going to be over here. Finally, right over here. So what I just did is I used the square to map out exactly how this is going to warp. Now, there are definitely probably more exacting ways to do this, but for our purposes, especially when you're doing hand sketching for a project, this is a really great way to rough in a shape that you can then finesse later. But we've also unfolded a lot of important information here. We actually have to think about our tangents again, because we know that if this is going to be like a tube that's going this way, what I have to do is find the tangent, except this time with a horizontal at the bottom. It should go directly to that center point that I marked. That's how you know if you went a little bit too low. But I'm going to draw that out here. And then at the top, notice I'm not using the corner of the square. I'm going directly to here to draw this horizontal. Okay. Now let's say I wanted to make this thing look like a wheel. Could I just copy this shape in space? Well, let's find out. I'm going to do a little bit of exploring by putting another rectangle in here. So what I'm going to do is draw a line where I want this thing to get cut off. This is going to be a vertical line. And notice that this is actually the center of this circle. But what we need is to actually extend out some of this information to figure out where to put the other edge of this wheel. Because the farther out this wheel goes, if it's right here, you don't see the 2 sides of my hand. But as it goes out, you see one over here. And if I go farther, you see more of it. So it changes the curve on the outside. So let's check out how we can do the same thing. I'm going to extend the information on the front side of this box. So I'm going to take a line out to the left here. These are all horizontal now. and a line here. Now, the trick is, just like over here, we have the center line. It goes out to here and it goes down, and that's the outer edge of this rim. What we have to do is go from this new corner that we created and go from the vanishing point and out through here and figure out where it intersects. Do the same thing for this new point. This is probably getting a little confusing, but it's a system. If you just ask the question like, where's the new corner, where's the middle, what connecting lines need to be drawn, it's a process of elimination. I've been doing this for 25 years basically. Well, not really, 20 years probably. And so I've had a lot of practice, and even still sometimes I have to check my own measurements. So I just drew this line out to this front one. I drew a new line, and if we did a good job of drawing everything horizontal, let's double check. If I go through here, this is the magic of perspective, is it's a system. So if I did the job right, these 2 points should be vertical, and they're just about vertical. Check that out, right? I hope you can see this, but what I'm going to do now is I already have this point right here. I know that this is the middle of my curve, but this is where I want you to see. This curve might look a little different. This oval is a little bit more flattened than it is going to be out here, so I have to apply the same technique right out here. So you see how that's a little bit different? Same thing. Oh, Alex Hayden's in the chat. What's up, dog? Thanks for tuning in. Things are all good here. So now I have this curve. It's all set up. And you might have to finesse this a little bit to make it work for you. You might notice that here's going to be our piece right here. I didn't draw the back half of this ring over here because I didn't feel the need to, because it's going to get covered up. But let's try to erase some of this framework stuff that we did, and that's going to allow us to start to see the illusion that we worked so hard to create. By the way, if you're interested, this is called a Tough Stuff eraser stick. It's really good for doing detail erasing. And again, I'm kind of digging this black and white format. I feel like I'm in an old movie. Alright, so trying to do my best to erase that horizon line between here so we see a solid shape. Alright, so you can see how this looks a little bit more like it's ready to roll towards us. And again, I was sketching this stuff out. You can clean it up, refine it, but we're in the right zone here. It looks like we're on the right track. So when it comes down to something like this that's really small, I've found that it's almost easier to just rough it in. But you could use the same technique of finding that center point by making an X. And then I know that the center point of that thing is going to end up through here. And I need to go through this X from the vanishing point to find the center, and a vertical line right through the center of that thing to do that. See how it's getting all kind of messed up? It's almost easier just to use that square as a general guide, because when you get smaller, it's harder to it's just hard to be precise. Using the tangent line from the top, I can kind of guesstimate what that's going to look like. Now for this side, it's easier just to draw this square, that kind of in X-ray. So I'm just using that intersection. But you're going to notice that this part definitely swings out a little bit more. And we have this new cylinder up here. And if I lighten up the construction lines, you'll start to see it. But notice, this bottom line got shaved off. So it's important to kind of do this work. And if you know that a cylinder has to be in a specific place, you kind of need to make some adjustments in order to do it. All right, so looks like we're ready to roll. You guys like my, I don't even think that's a pun. That's just a lame joke. That's one of the biggest things I miss about being a classroom teacher is just telling lame jokes, because I realized over the years I could never be cool in their eyes. I would just say bad jokes to make them cringe. That was my only power over them. So again, I've been practicing my bad jokes. All right, so we got a big wheel over here. We have this tube. But when it comes down to, if you're especially if you draw cars, okay, maybe one of the wheels might be turned. Just keep in mind that even if the rest of your car is lined up with a vanishing point, if they turn the wheels, you might have to add another vanishing point to calculate where that's going to be. It's a little bit difficult, but one hint I'm just going to have, if you're going to jump ahead to one or beyond 1 point perspective into 2 or 3 point perspective, that vanishing point is usually almost always on the horizon line, unless you're doing something pretty funky. Or let's say you're in outer space and there's no reference. You're not on a planet. There's so much crazy stuff you can get into. But so by the way, let's take a quick break here. If you're watching, say hi in the chat. I'd love to know how are things going. Especially if you guys are stuck at home like me. I'm all set up here, but it's going to be a productive month or so, or however long. I'm planning on doing a live cast like Monday through Friday, at least for like an hour. But if you guys have ideas, or if you have like art homework that you have to do at home and you have questions, send them my way. Maybe we can do some specific videos. And yeah, I don't know. And I promised some people years ago that I'd make merch. So if you have ideas for merch, let me know. All right, anyway. So here we go. We have a lot of options in here to make some kind of complex shapes. But I wanted to start off with something that might be better off on a new page. So let's try that out. It's kind of a little dirty. Let me clean it up. Okay, so let's talk about negative spaces inside of round objects. Because this can be, or you could have a square with a round hole in it. There's all sorts of cool variations we could do. But if you have to look through something, it can get a little bit complex. I'm going to start off, I'm going to draw my horizon line a little bit lighter because I know I'm going to be doing some erasing. I'm going to put my vanishing point in the center. And I'm going to start off by putting a kind of like a tall rectangle box type thing right here. And we'll get some really funky ways to make the illusion of depth a little bit more believable. Okay, so I got this nice solid block. Let's picture that it's not that thick. Okay, and notice how all these converging lines go to the vanishing point. Super important. Connecting the corners. And then finding where a vertical line from this side, right? This side will be vertical, so I got to figure out exactly where that meets up. Okay, so this is going to be my solid block. Let's just think of it as a block of concrete. Now, I'm going to put a square hole right here. Maybe it'll be a rectangle. Hey, what's up, Alec? Good to see you, man. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe. My boy Alec is saying hi. Yo, we live. Maybe one of these days I'll have to draw some of my friends on this channel. Actually, would you guys be into? Maybe I should do some kind of promo, like top commenter or something, or well, do some prize. I'll do some like portraits and giveaways and stuff. So if you have an idea for a giveaway, let me know. I used to give away slime. I guess Alex would have won the slime today. But you got Alex and Alec in the chat, which is, that's got to be something like incredible. Okay, I'm getting distracted here. I'm going to draw a circle right here. All right, and I'm going to erase the horizon line for now. By the way, this isn't like a chewed up piece of gum or something. It's called a kneaded eraser. They're super awesome. Anyway, okay, so we got a solid block right here. So what are we going to do? We're going to try to make these as holes that we... Hey, Kate. We're going to make these holes so you can see through, like it's almost like a window. All right? So what we have to think about is we've already drawn the shape that we're going to cut out into the front face. All right? But the cool thing is we have to project that shape all the way through, just like we were drawing it in perspective, but think of it in X-ray. So let's start by kind of drawing the invisible sides of this object. So I'm going to use the same rules. Okay, I'm going to connect these corners to the vanishing point. I'm going to use a light line this time. Okay, I'm not drawing it all the way there, and as you get better, you'll be able to do that as well. Okay, I'm taking my corners here and here, and I'm going to connect them using a horizontal line. Yeah, boy. All right, and then those should line up if I did it correctly. Let's just pretend it did. Let's see how it got a little messed up there, but I think we're feeling pretty good about it. Anyway, good enough for government work. By the way, let's hope that these government officials can figure out what's going on in our lives here. Anyway, Joe Anderson wants me to teach how to draw a nose. There are holes in a nose. You could think of this as almost like a nose in a way. Got two holes in it. But I will do that in a future video. All right, here we go. So the question is, when we cut a hole through here, we got to know the shape that it's making on the inside. It doesn't just, like, if this was a hole on one side of the box, we would just see the other back side of this box, and we wouldn't see the horizon. So our goal is, how do we show the horizon through there? Now, I want to show you how to get that result and not to get tricked, because a lot of people would just be like, oh, well, you can just erase here and then draw a line and see that. Well, it doesn't account for the perspective inside this box, and this is where it gets a little crazy. So here we go. We got this circle, and I'm going to use the same techniques of connecting that vanishing point with a, what kind of line? You guessed it, tangent. So I'm rotating around my vanishing point until I hit the edge of that circle. I'm going to draw a line. Okay? Same thing on the top. Taking the vanishing point, rotating it down till it hits on the tangent, right on the edge. Okay? We're going to pause. We'll do the same thing for this box over here, making sure to get all four corners. So I'm not drawing it all the way through because I don't want to deal with it hitting over here. I should probably slow down and be patient, but I've been drinking too much coffee. Okay, so I've almost projected these things out, but look, right now it looks like they're just blasting towards us, and that's what we learned how to do in the last couple videos. So how do we make it look like a hole? Well, first of all, we need to think about this. Is there a pipe going all the way through this block, or is it stopping at the back plane? This is where it gets a little complex. We have to actually wrap the dimensions around the back side to figure out exactly where this thing is. So how do we do that? First off, we're going to take some measurements. It seems crazy, but I want you guys to watch. I'm going to take the width of this little box. So you see how taking the width over here, all right, and I marked it at the top of the box. Same thing on this circle. The width of the circle is going to be over here, and I'm marking it on the top of the box. All right, so I have these two new construction lines, things that can help us like measure out exactly how wide something is, but it's like, you'll see what I do with it. All right, so these are four new targets. I'm going to do the same thing. These are about the same height, but I'm going to mark them on the side of the box right over here. But you see that they're about the same height. I'm just going to go with this. Now, I want you guys to just forget about the front side of the box for right now. I want you to focus specifically on the back side of the box that we drew kind of in X-ray, okay? So it's behind here. What we want to do is wrap these lines around and then down into the back. So there's a lot of stuff going on. But remember, it's not going anywhere. You can always erase it. And you don't need to think about it because it's already drawn. It's not going to change unless we do something to it. So I'm going to start by transferring those lines so they trace directly across the top of the box. So check this out. Vanishing point, and then I'm going to stop directly at the end of that piece. Okay. So you can see those lines stopped over here, right? That's the end of the box. Same thing. We're using the same vanishing point. If the line doesn't go straight up or straight down or left or right, then it probably goes to the vanishing point. Okay, you see how I marked those measurements? I'm going to do the same thing here along this side of the box, the vertical side. I'm going to connect this line right here. I don't know about you, but I'm getting pumped. Check this out. I'm like literally thinking in 3 dimensions. If I could only see in 4 dimensions, I could see backwards in time. That's something that I want you guys to think about. We're playing with time, space, and, you know, energy, your vibes, all those things. Okay, so we got our width and our height transferred on the sides of the box. We just needed to drop them down and see where they intersect. Okay, so remember how we used that square to define where that circle was going to go? We're going to do the same thing, but again, we're focusing on this back boundary, the back plane over here of the box. So I'm going to start by looking for my targets, where they intersect with that back plane. Now, a lot of people think this is advanced stuff, but really it's like arithmetic. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. We're not multiplying here. We're using one step at a time. Once you learn these tools, you'll be able to apply them to any situation. Here we go. I'm going to drop down a vertical line here at each one of those things on the back plane of this box. Look at that. Like butter. It's cutting right through there. Getting confusing, but I want you guys to focus on this back plane of the box. I just dropped down those measurements. Now I'm going to come over here. These 2 new targets that I created on the back edge, they're going to go straight across, horizontal now. By the end of this, you guys are going to be literally dreaming in 3 dimensions in perspective. Okay, here we go. This is what's nuts about this here. All right. Now, first, I'm going to just sharpen up some of the stuff I got going on right now because I don't want you guys to get too confused. So I'm going to draw this circle a little bit more defined. Okay, and my box here, it's looking like money. Oh yeah. All right. So let's start with this one. We want to figure out what does that rectangle look like in back here. Well, we already have a lot of the lines drawn. And let's put our letters on there. A, B, C, and D. Okay? Starting with point A. We have a line that's going from point A to this new intersection back here. We already have a line drawn there that magically intersects. But I'm going to stop it right here because it's a hole. Right? I'm going to try B. B goes over here and it has a new intersection right there. I'm going to stop. Okay? And this is what I realize is going to stop here because it goes behind that line. We still have a few lines here, but in reality, I want you guys to see, if I erase some of this stuff, you're going to start to notice starting to look like a hole in this box, right? You can't see around that corner. What are we going to do for this circle though? Because what we just realized is our dimensions over here in this square, our circle exists right there. And I'm going to start by using that same tool to extend those things. This would be the size hole in the back of the box. But the thing is, I can't see this side of it, but what we will see is a nice little sliver of the horizon. And this is what's exciting, is we're going to erase some of this hard work we did, because it's the building block of our new reality here. I want you to start to see what we just did. Alright, let me darken up this area. Okay. What we just figured out is that this square is too far over to even see all the way through this thing. But we can see just enough in here to actually see that horizon through the hole. Okay? It's not going to start to make perfect sense until I remove some of these lines. And again, I used a darker pencil than I normally would, so I apologize if it's getting a little confusing, but hopefully you guys can see that. Let me just darken up some lines and I think we're ready to go. So, what did we cover in this thing? Is that using these measuring or constructing lines that follow the same rules that anything else, we can actually draw negative spaces or negative forms, like a hole that has the shape of an object. So it's a three-dimensional volume. So we covered a lot of ground here, and this is definitely probably going to confuse you if this is new. But the thing is like, I just want to show you some of the possibilities of using the techniques that we use to draw the round forms. Because without learning how to draw those round forms in perspective, you kind of don't get the hang of drawing and transferring those dimensions out into space. So I didn't really use that word too much in the measurement way. So we talked about like 3 dimensions. So we're seeing in 3D. Okay? If you're going to be designing something like a bridge or engineering a new car, like for example, a dimension is like its length, its actual measured length. And we like to think of our dimensions as width, okay, height, and depth. Okay? If you do it in math, you're going to see it in different ways. Remember, if you look at a graph, you have the x and the y, right? And then z goes this way, right? So you have x is the horizontal axis, y, okay, is the vertical, and this is z. So when you start to like think, oh, I love drawing in 3 dimensions, but like art is, it's not practical, it's not a professional thing. Well, how do you think they create the sense of depth in your favorite video game or favorite, Pixar movie? they use mathematical formulas that the computer processes or that somebody has to program to create this same illusion of depth. You can create a computer program to do this for you. So there are ways to use the same level of thinking. When I use my iPad Pro and the Apple Pencil or Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop, I can use a grid that lines up and snaps to these perspective lines. So you can apply this knowledge in so many different ways. And, even if you're not doing drawings of basic shapes like this, you can make sure that they follow the laws of perspective so they don't look strange, because our eye is very good at finding different ways that the illusion breaks down. Okay, so if you're checking this out right now and you're live, does anyone have an idea of something you want to see drawn? Because I can come up with something, but if you want me to cover something that was confusing, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I could do like a basic car if you want me to do that. If I don't hear from anyone, I'll just start laying that out. Anyway, so here we go. I'm going to just start on a car. If you have questions, shoot them at me. Even if I don't get to it today, I could certainly do it another time. All right. So I'm going to start off by creating kind of two boxes, kind of long flat boxes. This is going to be a very derpy car, but I think you're going to like it. Okay, this is going to be the front of the car. And I'm just going to lightly put this line in. I'm going to trim it on the back. This will be the back end of the car. And I'll draw a horizontal line across. So this is basically like a block of cheese, something like that. Okay, but what I haven't drawn yet is where I want the ground to be. So I'm going to draw another converging line a little bit lower. Okay, I'm going to pick where I want the wheels to go. So I'm going to go one wheel here and one wheel here. All right, and I'm going to draw a vertical line down where each wheel is going to go. But I want to make sure they're the same height, so I'm going to take this as my point. I'm going to extend it over. So I know that both of my wheels have to be between this line. Okay? All right. I'm going to say the front part of my wheel should be here. And I'm going to start off by drawing them as squares. All right, and I'm actually going to make a little, they should have some thickness to them, so I'm going to put a line like this. And to tell how thick this one should be, we'll do that in a second. This is definitely like a Minecraft car. Oh, Alec wants to see a baseball. Kate wants to see a leprechaun. We'll have to put a leprechaun in the car. How about that? We'll make it a convertible, and he'll be catching a fly ball on his lucky day, St. Patrick's Day. All right, how about that? A second leprechaun too. That might be a little bit, a little bit much, but we'll see if we have time for it. Okay, so think of it this way: if you've played like Minecraft before, you see like a really early 3D video game. That's a good way to think about this stuff. It's a lot easier to make blocky and like garbage things first and then smooth them out later. Okay, so I have my body of my car, I have the wheels on this side, okay, but I want to transfer some to this side. So I'm actually going to look at this point right here, and I'm going to draw a horizontal line across, and we're going to make another construction line from this corner all the way to the vanishing point. Because I'm basically wrapping those measurements around. Okay, so I'm seeing inside the car, and where these two lines meet up and they go straight down, those are going to be where the center of the wheels hit. Can you guys see that? There's so much erasing that goes on when you do this stuff. Like, don't worry about it if like you're burning up erasers. Like, I have to punch this thing out again. Okay, this is getting a little crazy. All right, so anyway, I'm going to just rough out these wheels here using this as a base. So I'm going to round these out. So you see how I'm just kind of trying to paint those ovals directly in there by touching each of the four sides at least once. I know for a fact that each one of them have to be, you know, in that area. Now what's weird is I had some width to them, so those wheels I need to connect to this one that indicates the width of the wheels. I'm going to go all the way back. Okay, that means that right here I have to draw my curve underneath the car there, and then draw a straight line and underneath the car there. Hopefully you guys can start seeing this. I didn't do a good job with that horizontal, but alright. How do I transfer those across? Well, let's try to get this front part of the wheel over here. And I'm just going to get a little... I'm just going to see the bottom of this wheel. I'm going to approximate this because I'm getting lazy. But one way to do it is like, I could take a measurement and say, alright, this wheel is about a 1/2 inch thick. I'm going to put a 1/2 inch marking here. I'm just going to put that in there. So I can see under the car, I'm drawing that curve. This looks a little sloppy, I'm not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. Alright, so I've created this. I'm gonna lighten up some of those measurement lines. Sometimes the ghost of those measurement lines can help us out later, so I don't want to take them out completely until I'm done. But so you guys can see where we're at, it's going to be really helpful. Alright, that's looking like a pretty slick whip there. Alright, so we want to add a basic windshield because this is going to be a convertible. But before I do, let's add some... How about this? We'll make the headlights, we'll make them shamrocks for St. Patrick's Day. That's pretty awesome. So this is the Lucky the Leprechaun's ride. Oh, and then the grill, what's it going to be? Looks like a sad face, actually. It's a rainbow. It's a pot of gold. This is a real amazing innovation. Alright, he's racing to the rainbow to get a pot of gold. Alright, so where do we put the windshield? I'm going to start off putting a line right there. I'm going to just sharpen it up with a line. Okay? And how do I, like if it's going straight up, let's just say this thing is like a Jeep. Okay? If it's going straight up, it's going to be something like this. Right, vertical line. But the trick of turning these types of drawings into, you know, a piece of art that's doesn't look like you used a ruler for everything is at some point you have to start to think about how some more natural shapes fit in. So especially with a leprechaun and the kind of details of a car, you're going to want to think and lightly sketch those things in. Let's put a tire on the back of the car. It's like a Jeep. You know, I could spend some time and do that in perspective, but We got other things to worry about. Okay, I'm gonna make it one of those like really cool Jeeps without a door, so we can see the little leprechaun. Okay, how about the seats? Well, I'm gonna kind of cheat and just make them low back seats. I'm drawing them light because the leprechaun is gonna overlap. I'm gonna draw the dashboard. It kind of goes up like this. Here's the steering wheel. Okay, now the trick is going to be to draw the leprechaun in there. Alright, so I gotta actually like look at a picture of a leprechaun. Let me do that real quick. Oh, it says that they don't exist and there's nothing to look at. Okay, here's a good one. Alright, so basically we need a large hat, but before I do that, I'm going to draw his kind of body and the size of his head. He's going to be kind of oversized for this Jeep. I'm going to put his head kind of to the side here. And he's going to be holding up his hand. And kind of doing a merry jig while driving the car. Probably not advisable. He's got a nice little beard. And we'll give him a big nose. Here's his eyebrows. This guy's looking pretty sweet, not gonna lie. And we'll give him a big... I don't want to make him look like a pilgrim though. That looks pretty sweet. It does kind of look like a pilgrim hat when you think about it. Give him a little curl of hair up here. And he's got a little suit on. And we'll give him... Should he be smoking a pipe or is that too old school? I think that's too old school. I'm going to put a... Oh, how about this? We'll put a pot of gold in the back seat. He's rolling deep in that gold. I want to know where the gold at. Have you guys seen that amateur sketch of a leprechaun? Alright, so he's got his gold and it's flying out the back. Because he's just like, I don't care. I got a bunch of gold. And Alec, do you really want to see a baseball? Man, alright. Well, he's just really happy, just for the heck of it. I'm going to have him holding on to a baseball. He's a lucky man. I want to keep my audience happy. This is an overdue thing to thank the Chicago Cubs. Maybe we owe the Leprechauns some thanks for all the luck that they gave us. So he's holding that baseball. Should we put... Yeah, let's put a license plate on here. And it's just going to say Luck Boy. Yeah, he's a lucky boy. We'll put a couple mirrors on this thing. This thing's tricked out. I would love to see like a custom Leprechaun car. And it's probably pretty small when you think about it. And what do you think? Let's put a rainbow in the background. Double rainbow. Look at that. It's another round object. Oh, do you want to put it in perspective? That's not a very good rainbow, but you guys get the picture. So, what's our leprechaun's name? Does anyone have a name for this leprechaun? Timothy O'Houlihan? I don't know. Alec, I'm glad I got the baseball in there for you. Hey, Sean, what's up? So, FYI, guys, come hot in with your ideas for tomorrow. I'll probably be doing this around a similar time. But yeah, had a lot of fun today. Thank you for commenting. This is always the best. I think we might have to make an animated series about this guy. Yeah, Timothy O'Houlihan and his hot rod. So, all right, just a review. A 3D box of Lucky Charms. Ooh, actually, that would be kind of fun. Why don't we do that real quick? That's a good one. I'll have to look up the picture of Lucky Charms. Alec, thanks for all the ideas today. Let me just find a picture real quick. Just so you know, I'm looking at my phone here. By the way, if you started to draw along or you do any other cool drawings, post them on Instagram. Post it up. And then make sure you tag me. I think it's at the bottom. Yeah, on the bottom of the screen over there. Art with Anderson with 2 underscores. Be sure to tag for daily draw along. Hashtag it up. Okay, I got this picture, Alec. Give me a second. All right, let's do a box of Lucky Charms. Well, since this leprechaun's really small, maybe we should make the Lucky Charms box like pretty big. Let's see. Or we could just put it, let's just put it kind of like behind him in the distance, like over here. All right, so let me just clean up here for a second. All right, here we go. It's going to be a large box that was like literally very tall. What's the tagline again for Lucky Charms? You're always after me, Lucky Charms. By the way, Lucky Charms are the best when they sit for like just long enough. Like they can't be like soggy. They have to be like crispy wet. You know what I mean? If you're not familiar with my theory on food, crispy wet is one of the categories. All right, here we go. Here's my box. I'm going to create a horizontal side. So you guys have been very helpful, by the way. I'm digging this. I wish there was like an audio chat feature where you guys could kind of like come on live air and stuff. Okay, so now I got to draw. This is another thing. Okay, how are we going to draw on this side? Like if this was a tall box of Lucky Charms. It's always helpful to kind of find that center. But since I'm going to be doing some drawing, I'm going to find it with just putting a little bit of X right here, not drawing it too dark. About right there, and here's the middle. Okay. Now I have this kind of arch shape, but I also want to put a line through the middle from the vanishing point as a guideline. So if my rainbow starts right here, goes up, it's going to stop at the same point. So let's see, he's got a rainbow right here. Okay, and our lucky boy is going to be right about here. By the way, I am half Irish, so I get to do all this stuff, you know. This is, no, I'm kidding. Everybody is Irish on St. Patrick's Day. All right, so what are the, I'm trying to remember the marshmallows. We got the rainbow. We got the heart. Kind of reminds me of Captain Planet. The horseshoe for all those gamblers out there. A little sad about March Madness not happening. Here's the moon. Oh, we got the hat. Then we got, what is that thing? Is it a golden nugget? Or like, I don't know. This looks like a, oh, maybe it's a bag of gold. And then a shooting star. Alright, here's the bowl. I don't know if this is helping, guys, but here, let's put the nutritional facts over here. The nutritional facts is, let's say it's 100% sugar. And the Lucky Charms, so you can see how it's very difficult to kind of see what's going on in there, but that's because of the distortion that takes place in one-point perspective. So I want you guys to just keep that in mind. Sometimes you might be set and be like, oh, I got to draw all the detail, but sometimes like you're more focused on the lucky boy over here than you are, you know, in these other things, because the distortion kind of changes it. I mean, maybe that's just me making excuses for this terrible drawing of the leprechaun from the Lucky Charms box, but how would you know? I'm the expert, you know? I guess that's what's beautiful about knowing everything about art. I'm just kidding. But I do appreciate all the interaction today, and I hope you guys learned a thing or two. But I think this was kind of fun, good way to celebrate. And again, keep in mind, I'm going to be doing this every day, so I need your ideas. We have requests for an egg. We have a request for noses. It's a very complex topic. And then I don't know. Like I said, leave all your comments, give suggestions. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel for updates for the live casts. Again, I'll have to figure out an exact time they're going to be doing it every day, but generally around this time. And then make sure you sign up and follow on Instagram. And if you did any artwork, you drew any lucky boys yourself, please be sure to put that on Instagram at Art with Anderson. All right? So it's been great, guys. Happy St. Patrick's Day from here in Chicago. And stay safe out there. Wash your hands. And I'll see you tomorrow. Take it easy, guys. Thanks for tuning in.